Episcopal Church leaders are refusing to resettle white Afrikaners from South Africa, claiming it is due to their steadfast commitment to racial justice. Roll this up over at fandompulse.com. You can find the link in the description below. And Rowe, who is the head of the Episcopal Migration Ministries, which is some kind of organization that leads the Episcopal Church, announced that his organization will not resettle white Afrikaner refugees from South Africa. He made this announcement in a letter published on May 12, where he revealed that the United States federal government requested Episcopal Migration Ministries to resettle white Afrikaners from South Africa, whom the U.S. government classified as refugees, through this kind of government grant program that the Episcopal Migration Ministries was operating in to resettle refugees. However, he then announced the organization would not be doing it. He explained, "In light of our church's steadfast commitment to racial justice and reconciliation and our historic ties with the Anglican Church of Southern Africa, we are not able to take this step." So I have absolutely no idea what racial justice is. It sounds like an absolutely woke garbage term. Why wouldn't you be committed to justice, right, instead of some kind of racial justice? Racial justice doesn't sound like justice at all. It sounds like that you are specifically trying to change the definition of justice based on the skin color of an individual, and you are clearly engaging in whatever this racial justice is by refusing to resettle these white Afrikaner refugees because of their skin color. At least that's what it looks like to me. And that's called racism. That's called racism when you are engaging in activities based on someone's skin color. And that definitely looks like what Rowe and the Episcopal Migration Ministries are doing here. Not only are they not going to be resettling these white Afrikaners from South Africa, but he also announced that the entire organization is going to be ending its work with this federal government program. And he says, accordingly, we have determined that by the end of the federal fiscal year, we will conclude our refugee resettlement grant agreements with the U.S. federal government. He would also provide a little bit more of an explanation as to why they weren't resettling these refugees a little bit later in the letter. And he said, it has been painful to watch one group of refugees selected in a highly unusual manner. He doesn't explain how it's highly unusual or why it's highly unusual. He just states that, which again is extraordinarily suspect. Nevertheless, he goes on and says, receive preferential treatment over many others who have been waiting in refugee camps or dangerous conditions for years. So again, he's not saying anything about whether or not these refugees were experiencing dangerous conditions for years as well, which I think it's likely that they have. So this idea that they're picking one over the other because of these certain things seems like a BS argument to me. And in fact, like one would choose certain groups over another because that's how you would handle them coming into the country. Probably easier to process certain groups depending on what's happening in the world at that time. Obviously, if there's some kind of mass war breaking out and there's people trying to flee that war, I would assume that the refugee program would probably focus in on those groups first as a priority. And clearly, I would think that the U.S. government did some analysis on this and noticed that there was clearly some kind of threat potentially happening against these refugees, and they decided that they should prioritize them at this point. And I think the threats have been very clear. If you watch any of these interviews that some of these leaders over there in South Africa give, they clearly talk about possible genociding the white Afrikaners out of South Africa. And they are pretty open about it. Nevertheless, he goes on and says, I am saddened and ashamed that many of the refugees who are being denied entrance to the United States are brave people who worked alongside our military in Iraq and Afghanistan and now face danger at home because of their service to our country. I also grieve that victims of religious persecution, including Christians, have not been granted refuge in recent months. So he's just kind of virtue signaling here, I feel like, to try to make himself feel a little bit better about the decision that he's making, of that he, I think, knows deep down is an absolutely despicable, evil decision, because he's saying that he's not doing this because of racial justice, which to me, just seems like a term that is the complete opposite of what justice is, which would not be looking at someone's skin color, which he clearly is, by calling it racial justice. So I think this is what it is, and I think this is kind of emotional manipulation as well, to try to get people to feel some kind of empathy towards him and his plight when he is clearly making a despicable decision. President Trump signed this executive order back at the beginning of February, denouncing the Republic of South Africa for enacting a law that it says enables the government of South Africa to seize ethnic minority Afrikaners' agricultural property without compensation. The order also noted that this new law follows countless government policies designed to dismantle equal opportunity in employment, education, and business, and hateful rhetoric and government actions fueling disproportionate violence against racially disfavored landowners. Again, this was back in February. This guy took till May, when the first batch of these Afrikaner refugees arrived in the United States, to actually say that he would not be engaging in this. So again, I think it's totally a virtue signal to the woke ideology that he is clearly captured by. But the order also went on to declare that the United States shall not provide aid or assistance to South Africa, and the United States shall promote the resettlement of Afrikaner refugees escaping government-sponsored race-based discrimination, including racially discriminatory property confiscation. So it's very clear that this was going to be happening. This executive order was signed at the beginning of February, and this guy took till May, 3 months later, to say that he wouldn't be participating in it and having a virtue signal about it, which again just goes to show you how this guy completely lacks any real virtue. And there's a video there if you want to watch of these Afrikaner refugees being welcomed into the United States at Dulles International Airport, just outside Washington, D.C. in Northern Virginia. White House Deputy Press Secretary Anna Kelly reacted to the Episcopal Church's announcement, telling the Daily Signal, the Episcopal Church's decision to terminate its decades-long partnership with the U.S. government over the resettlement of 59 desperate Afrikaner refugees raises serious questions about its supposed commitment to humanitarian aid. I think it raises many more questions than its just commitment to humanitarian aid. I think it raises questions about whether they're actually committed to the gospel of Jesus Christ. I think that raises serious questions about that. Any religious group should support the plight of Afrikaners who have been terrorized, brutalized, and persecuted by the South African government. The Afrikaners have faced unspeakable horrors and are no less deserving of refugee resettlement than the hundreds of thousands of others who were allowed into the United States during the past administration. President Donald Trump has made it clear refugee resettlement should be about need, not politics. So I think that kind of rebuts his virtue signal here that he was giving about what he described as, what did he describe it as? The suspect, or what did he say? What did he say here? He said it was a highly unusual manner, but doesn't explain how it was highly unusual, but kind of refutes that narrative that he's trying to spin there and gain sympathy, empathy for. But I found this extremely disconcerting, and just goes to show that there are wolves among us, and they are trying to lead people astray, and they are doing it based on race. And we've seen this play out through the last number of years, but they have clearly captured a number of institutions, and this stuff should be called out, and we should oppose it. But let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, and to always, always speak the truth.
Why would you be afraid of the people? Why are you not afraid of God instead of man?